Good evening. I'm George Katcharava, and I'm today making this podcast without my distinguished partner, Meurmishvili. When we will talk about Ukraine today and what is happening in and around this country, about the war and some efforts to end the war. The great news that we heard, not great, but very important news that we heard these days is that Ukrainian soldiers caught two Chinese fighters that were fighting in Donetsk region of Ukraine in the east, and they were fighting for Russian within Russian regiments. And this is kind of a scandalous situation because, as you know, China was always declaring that they are not participating in any sort of way in this conflict, in this war. But having two Chinese captured war prisoners are saying something because, as an investigation already showed, uh, these people were actually recruited in China by some middleman type of person, uh, and they were basically transported to Russia, and they got some military training in Luhansk region of Ukraine. I don't know what will be the outcome of all this, but I know that the Chinese representative was called to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Kiev, probably for some explanation. And this story might be developed further because, as we know, the situation in and around Ukraine and foreign fighters, including North Korean fighters, is very controversial. So let's see what will be happening there, and this can evolve in something very significant in terms of uh, international relations and relations between the countries. And also, I think United States and the Western allies should be watching this situation very carefully and closely. Another news is that, as we all know, one of the, let's say, requests or suggestions from the Western allies to the Ukrainian government was to accelerate the military recruitment processes in the country. So, as the government was reporting lately, the Ukrainian state and the Ukrainian armed forces are conducting this operation. I mean, not operation, but procedures throughout the Ukraine. And from the beginning of this year, first three months of this year, Ukrainian army was able to recruit already 50,000 new uh, recruits, which is a significant number for the country. And I think this process will be continuous. And I think 10,000 out of these 50 are already combat ready. So somehow Ukraine is resolving its problem with the manpower, front, and we can see that because Ukrainians lately were able to hold the ground much better than it was before, previous month. Um, on the other hand, as we know, in Saudi Arabia, we had a series of negotiations on the ceasefire. Well, while Russia has rejected the full-scale ceasefire, they accepted some truths related to the Black Sea and the strikes on the energy infrastructure. According to the Ukrainian officials, Russia is constantly violating this truth, but not only violating, but what military analysts are and observers actually are saying is that Russian military are actually accelerating or doubling down on all active front lines or segments of the front line throughout more than 2,000 kilometer line. And I think what we are witnessing right now is the beginning of so-called smaller scale but still offensive towards Sumy region of Ukraine in the east, which Ukraine was able to control and strike back. But this is a new area for combat since 2022, when the Russian troops were expelled from this region by Ukrainian armed forces. Um, Another news that was actually brought to our attention by uh, Chief of General Staff of Ukrainian Armed Forces, Mr. Syrsky, is that Ukraine actually is observing the upcoming military drills in Belarus with the participation of Russian forces. And as they say, these drills will involve some significant regiments from Russian side. Uh, and this reminds the pre-war military exercises conducted by the Russian and Belarus forces jointly just before invasion, when the Russian troops have never left the training ground, and then the invasion followed. So Mr. Sirsky has mentioned that there is a threat of a new invasion from the side of Belarus, from the territory of Belarus. But he said that the Ukrainian side is very closely watching and observing these developments. And I think this is another area that has to be very closely monitored by everybody, because surprises in the war can happen from this kind of developments very easily. Uh, what also happening is that since the negotiations in Saudi Arabia, actually when Russia was basically negotiating with the United States, there is a very you know established, I would say, feeling that Russia is artificially prolonging these negotiations just to gain some ground on the battlefield. I mean, advantages ground on the battlefield, in order to then dictate their proposals or conditions for ending the war. In this regard, what is interesting is that instead of basically negotiating in the good faith and presenting itself in the good faith in this process, uh, simultaneously Russia is striking very badly some civilian uh, settlements and towns in Ukraine. And last time it was Kryvyi Rih, which is the native town of President Zelensky. He's from there, and his family is residing in that town. Uh, and it is actually what is happening is that basically there is a feeling that Russia is not abandoning the its plans, original plans to capture the whole Ukraine and destroy its sovereignty and territorial integrity, and what else. Um, I think all this basically brings us to the conclusion that uh, we are not facing something, that it will bring us to the peace times, and the conflict or the war efforts from the Russian side will be basically mounting and increasing. What else is important is that Ukrainian side lately published also some material related to foreign parts that are used in weaponry, that strikes Ukraine. over 80% of this is produced in China. And, if you couple this information with the information that I just mentioned before, related to the imprisonment of two Chinese warriors, that brings us to the conclusion that China is somehow also involved in this. On the other hand, we also see that increased use of artillery shells and artillery on the front line in general, which points out, some analysts are pointing out that it might mean that the delivery of these artillery shells are increased from the side of the North Korea. So as we see, the Russia is really increasing its military efforts on the front line and on the battlefield, whereas Ukraine lately was able to basically effectively defend itself, thanks to building up some fortification lines along the front line and on the border areas of Russia with Russia. On another note, we also have to note that there is a small incursion of Ukrainian troops in Belgorod region of Russian Federation. They actually were able to penetrate the well-fortified line that was built actually last year, after the incursion in Kursk, just to defend another bordering region of Russian Federation. That was successful, the penetration, but we still don't know what area Ukrainian troops are basically holding at the moment. But it seems that it's not very, very large. Although the fact that Ukrainian troops were able to open another hotspot within Russia is also very telling. Also, we have to mention that Ukraine is increasing its drone capabilities, so they were able now to develop a long-range, drone, attacking drone, that is able to reach the target 1,700 kilometers from Ukraine inside Russia. So by this, I think it's not that I think the Ukrainian militaries are actually declaring that they will be hitting military targets within Russia, and therefore I think this is one of the reasons why Russian Air Force has to move the military airfields further from the Ukrainian territory for 400 or 500 kilometers from Ukraine, which is also a significant sign that there's the fear within Russia that these locations can be hit. It's also important that to understand that already existing military capabilities, last week Ukraine hit the huge depot of armaments, where they were able reportedly to destroy more than 50% of 122 caliber shells, which is a significant actually arsenal for Russian forces. So I would say that, in order to conclude now, that first conclusion is that, in my opinion, the real ceasefire is far away from being signed and actually adhered to. The second is that with the current capabilities, Ukraine is able to effectively defend the current existing front line. The third, I would say, is that Russian troops are unable to basically gain more territory or let's say initiative on the battlefield. So we are basically probably dealing in military terms with a stalemate, and that brings us to a situation probably where the political solution will be inevitable in a coming month. But it will not happen, I think, very, very soon. On the additionally, what I want to highlight is the speech made by the incoming Chancellor, German Chancellor, Mr. Merz, where he said a very interesting phrase that Germany is back. What does that mean, Germany is back? I think that Mr. Merz, in his speech, actually rightly so mentioned the need for Germany to increase its military capabilities, to increase the number of soldiers in the country. So they are not, he also spoke about the plans not to bring back the conscript procedures in the country, but what he actually mentioned and what is interesting is that they will probably follow the Swedish volunteer recruitment processes within Germany that will allow Germany to increase army quite quickly, as well as to increase the military spending, the budget for Bundeswehr. Uh, that will basically bring Germany in near future on the leadership position as a military power in Europe, together with France and Great Britain, which is significant in terms of defending European continent and probably also making Ukrainian army on the front line in this current war of aggression that Russia is staging there. I think this all brings us to the opinion probably that more still to come, and peace is not close, but we hope that this development, um, all these developments actually, will give us a bit of a more optimism in terms of situation related to the war in Ukraine is not going 100% under Russian scenario. So thank you very much for this, and see you next week again. Bye bye.